Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to take a look at just some of the most important tools and techniques that we'll be using when we design a logo or whenever you're designing a logo in general. So basically, we could see if we look at the tools over here, and by the way, go to File, New, and just create a new document at 500 by 500 or something similar and hit OK. If we look at these tools over here, there's a lot of tools that are very similar to what we would see in Photoshop. So for instance, we have the regular selection tool. If we switch over to Photoshop, we have the same thing over here. We also have the direct selection tool, which we can see in Photoshop we have right here, down here. And we can also see we have a pen tool, which Photoshop has, a type tool as well, and then some basic shape creation tools. All are very similar to what Photoshop offers. So let's say, for example, we wanted to create an extremely simple logo. So let's say we have an ellipse and we'll have a circle. So I'm going to basically left click, hold shift, hold alt, and drag out from the center. And now we have a very basic circle. Now we can see when we create any type of shape using this tool over here, we have some properties up here that we can edit. So we can change the stroke that's on it. We could also get rid of the stroke by clicking over here and choosing the red slash. It's showing up off my screen so you can't see it, but it's the very first preset. So that gets rid of it. We can add it back, but just by choosing a color, increase the stroke size. If we click on stroke itself, it gives us some options over here. We can make it a dashed line. If we click on that, we could change the width of the dashes themselves. And we can also change a line stroke. Right now it's in the middle. We can make it go on the inside or outside. And if our stroke ended somewhere, we can also change the caps. So just to illustrate that, if we take the direct selection tool, take this anchor point, hit delete, we can now see that by default they are just basically kind of right angles. Now if we select this though, and we choose stroke, we can change this to a round cap, so now it's nice and round, kind of like a smiley face. Okay, so that's just basically how you work with the fill and the stroke. So this is the stroke, and over here is the fill. We can also get rid of the fill if we don't want it, or we can give it a specific fill with it selected, like that. Very simple. So also another thing that's important is whenever you select a object here in Illustrator, it'll give you this automatic, these transform controls over here, and it will also give you an outline of the path itself. If you don't want to see that, you can hit Control H, and that will get rid of that path, and it will only show up if you're basically hovering over the path itself. All right, so let's add some text. So I'm going to add some text just anywhere, just by left-clicking once. I'll just type in design coder. And I'll make this large, so I'm going to left-click, drag. And if you ever want to filter through a bunch of fonts to see and find one that you want with it selected, we click up here where it shows all of our fonts, and you use your keyboard's up and down arrow. So I'm just going to hit down and just start filtering through a lot of different fonts. So let's say we like this one. Very good. And if you notice, if we move things around enough, you'll see these little green sort of lines show up. What these are is that's the smart guides turned on. So if you're ever trying to align something to the center of something else, or basically it takes a look at the other objects that are in your or around your object, and it'll help you try to align it vertically or horizontally. So that's also useful as well. Okay. Another really important technique here to use is, let's say for example we don't have a stroke on this, so we'll get rid of the stroke, but we'll give it a black fill. Let's say we wanted to have another circle in the middle of this. Well, what we could do, and we could do that through several ways, what we can do is take this, hit Control C, Control F. That creates a duplicate. And let's scale this down. So I'm going to hold, then left click, drag, hold Shift and Alt, maybe right around there, and then drag it up, holding Shift. And holding Shift will make it go perfectly vertical. And let's make this white. Okay, so now we've cut that out. However, it's not technically cut out. It's not transparent because it's still going to be white. If we change the background here to something else, we would see white right here. So if you want it to be transparent, you have to use the Pathfinder. So we go to Window, Pathfinder, and that's showing up off my screen. There it is. And the Pathfinder allows you to do a lot of different things with multiple objects. So if we wanted to cut this object out of this object, well, the way we would do that is by taking this right here, hold Shift, left click, and select this so we can see both of these are now selected because the little selector icon is also outlined here. And what you would do is choose this right here, which is minus front. So it's saying is whatever is in front of it, we're going to subtract whatever is selected behind it. So once we click that, now it just changed this to a path. And now there's nothing in the center, and it is now basically one unique path. And if I select it and hold Control H, we can see the outline itself. So now we can do anything that we want with it. And there you go. So these tools right here, these different shape modes and pathfinders, they allow you to do a lot of different things. And I would definitely recommend experimenting with these. And these will ultimately help you be able to make more unique custom shapes with as little work as possible. All right, so basically these shape tools, very similar to Photoshop. When it comes to the type tool, again, very similar as well. If we have the type down here, if we click on this, there, if we click on character, it gives us a lot of different options. We can control the leading, so we can increase this, and that's going to be the, what do you call the, if you have multiple lines of text, which usually in a logo you won't, they'll increase the vertical space. We also have tracking, and so if we want a lot of space in between each letter, we can do that. So if we want to do it all the way to 200, we can. You can also have negative as well. So if we choose like negative 100, it's really close, looks bad, don't want that. And then there are also some other options, which generally I don't ever mess with, right? Let me scale this down. Now the pen tool is very similar here in Illustrator when you compare it to Photoshop. So you have the pen tool, add anchor point, delete anchor point tool. You know, there's all very similar to how Photoshop has it set up. And basically, if we just create some random shape here, you can see how we have the Bezier curves just by left clicking, dragging. And we can always click it up and, you know, complete the shape by coming back to the original anchor point. If I Control Z a few times, we can also do interesting things. So we have this crazy looking line here. If we select it, we get rid of the fill color here by hitting the red slash and give it a fill here. We can increase the size. We could also use this right here, which is handy. This is the variable width profile. So if I click this one, you can see it starts off very thin and then gradually will taper off at the other end. This one, you can see basically just experiment with all of these to create really interesting, unique strokes. And basically, that is mostly it. So we went over the pen tool, the type tool, the shape creation tools. And between those three, that's mainly what you're going to be using when it comes to Illustrator and in relation to logo design at least. All right, so hopefully you found that useful. And in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and get started with our actual bucket drops project. All right, I'll see you then.